Welcome to the importance and power of reading. I'm Michelle, the computer lady, your host. During some awful dark times in America, Black people were denied the ability to read, to learn how to read, to write, or to even own books. And that has hampered our communities up until this day. Now we're going to have important conversations about the importance and power of reading. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my new segment on the importance and power of reading. We had a couple of weeks off. We had some tragic events that happened, but we want to celebrate the importance and power of reading. Today, I have an amazing guest. When I say phenomenal, I mean just that. We have Dr. Ponder. She's a PhD from Howard University. Dr. Ponder, thank you so much for joining me on this segment of the importance of power of reading. If you would just tell everybody a little bit about you, how you got your start, and some of the things you're doing right now.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am just elated to be here. My name is Dr. Neosho Ponder. I am a native of Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been living in the Washington, D.C. Area, gosh, for over a decade now. I earned my master's and PhD at the Mecca, Howard University. And then right after I finished grad school, I was diagnosed with stage 2B breast cancer. And since then, just really been working to get back on my feet. But in 2021, we're in the throes of the pandemic, and God said, write your book. And I was like, but I don't have a job. I need to find a job. He's like, I got you. Write your book. And I spent the year 2021 while still, coming in the throes of the pandemic, working with an organization called the Creator Institute, which is a book author program, writing my book. And I'm just so happy to be here. And I mean, I'm also neurodivergent. So just to have ADHD and to be able to accomplish this, I just hope that when people watch this segment, they'll see that you can be neurodivergent and still write a book and still read a book and finish a book.
That is absolutely phenomenal. That's an epic story. Now, Dr. Ponder, you said you were a resident of Kansas City. When I think about Kansas City, you know what I think about, right?
I hope
Barbecue.
barbecue.
Absolutely. Barbecue. One of the
Yes.
barbecue capitals of the world. And so I have friends out there. Shout out to all my friends. You know who I'm talking about, you that are in
Mhm.
Kansas City. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit and I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
When did you start reading? What age?
Oh, wow. I want to say, I grew up in a multi-generational household. And I talk about that in a whole chapter of the book. And so I grew up with older cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and then my mom and my younger sister. And that was my earliest years. So I started reading probably about 3 years old. 1983, when Michael Jackson was moonwalking on Motown 25, I was a very precocious kid, and watching my older cousins do their homework. I just evolved, and then once my sister was coming along, she's 13 months younger than me. I taught her how to read, and so it became a staple in my life. But I was big in academics. I was a very studious child. So so yeah, I was that kid that would read like series of books and things like that. So
Awesome. So when you started reading, what was your favorite book that you remember? What's your favorite children's book that you remember reading that you hold dear in your heart?
mm, man, huge Judy Blume fan. If you haven't watched her documentary, I think it's on HBO. Huge Judy Blume fan. I think that probably my favorite children's is gosh, Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing, Fudge, Super Fudge. I mean, all of those books. Huge Julie. I mean, I was reading forever in middle school, like a lot of middle schoolers were. And yeah, I was a huge Judy Blume fan as a kid. So
That is absolutely awesome. Judy Blume, one of my favorite authors as well. Now, my favorite book as a kid, I have a couple, but one of them was Madeline, 12 Little Girls in Two Straight Lines, because I read
mm,
that. And so that resonated with me, and it was one of the books that my godmama, hey, godmother Althea, she gave me, and my sister would give me books on Black history. Now, speaking of books, what are you reading right now? What are you reading today?
Ooh. So in addition to finally recording my audiobook, it's been like a whole year and a half. So I have, okay, as I shared, I'm neurodivergent, so I read several books at a time. I'm reading Daring Greatly, I think it is, by Brene Brown. I'm reading Professional Troublemaker by Olivia Jai Jones, who is also my sorority sister. And I just finally got, after like waiting 2 years, I went to a book signing of his, Michael Harriot, who is our consciousness, the voice, the journalist that speaks all the things that, for Black America. And he wrote a book called Black AF History. So I told him that I was going to use it as a reference manual, because we went to dinner after the book signing, because we have mutual friends, and he was like, actually, you can read it cover to cover. So I've been traveling the last couple of weeks right after I got the book, but that's going to be my next jumping into, cracking it open. So
That is absolutely amazing. And I love Michael Harriot. I actually follow him on Instagram. I,
to,
watching some of his things on YouTube. He's doing some phenomenal work, not only as a broadcaster, but as an author, making sure, especially during this time of book banning, that
mm-hmm.
we're learning our history, and he's passing that along. So, Michael, if you hear this, know that we got our eyes on you. Now,
Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you.
absolutely. Now, here's the deal. When you were young, who was your major influencer in your reading journey? Was it mom, dad, your aunt, your cousins? What gave you that fire that made you want to learn how to read, and that keeps you going on this reading journey?
Hmm. I would say probably, and she always says that I inspire her because of my breast cancer journey and all that I went through. But my oldest cousin, her name is Sean. Well, her name is Sheila, but we call her Sean as a nickname. Yeah, she was the studious cousin out of the bunch. I had 5 older cousins, and she's the oldest. She had an older brother that passed at birth, but and she's now an English teacher, and she also teaches reading at the high school level. She's been teaching for like 30 years or something. So yeah, I think that honestly, just watching her, I stumbled across a picture at one of my older siblings' house years ago of her doing her homework, sitting at the dining room table, and you can see the back of my little head at the corner of the picture. And I would do that. I would like sit there and watch her. So I think that was probably my first journey into it. And then, of course, I had some decent teachers here and there. I grew up in the inner city school district in Kansas City, and when they see that you have a certain level of intelligence, they don't pay as much attention to you, right? Because you're not the one with the behavior issues or learning disabilities or things like that. So because I wasn't that kid, I was more of the talkative kid. I was very loquacious, still am at times. That's actually my line name even. But I always did my work. So, having teachers who didn't mind me being quiet, in the corner reading, I think that kind of fueled me with reading. And I'm a Pisces, so just having that imagination and being able to submerge myself into a good book. I remember, gosh, after college, reading books in a weekend. If it's rainy and you don't want to get cute and go out, you don't want to go shopping, you don't want to leave your house, you make some soup, you curl up with a good book. And yeah, I used to do that too. So I think that was really, though, the first thing that really made me love school, and just watching someone ahead of me do it. So
That is absolutely amazing. Now, you said that you were in a sorority. Which sorority in the Divine Nine are you affiliated with? Please let everybody know.
yes, I am I'm now a 24, almost 25-year member of the largest Black Greek lettered organization, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. As you can see, I have elephants behind me. This is like my Zoom corner in my house. And And yeah, so that and learning how so many of my sorority founders were teachers, that was really inspiring, and I think that I definitely made the right choice, and they made the right choice picking me as well. So
That is absolutely awesome. Now, Dr. Ponder, you know we're going to have to take a small commercial break, and we're going to be right back on the importance of power reading. Everybody, don't touch that down. We'll be back. Two and two. You're watching the PIC TV network, channel 1000.
Since 1877, Jackson State University has been training students for a life of service and leadership to impact our global society. Ranked among the best HBCUs in the country, Jackson State University offers 47 undergraduate, 37 master's, 1 specialist, and 13 doctoral degree programs. Whether you're interested in the arts, education, public health, the sciences, or business, we're here to take you from ready to JSU ready. Visit jsums.edu and apply today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the importance and power of reading. I'm Michelle, the computer lady, and I have an outstanding and epic guest, Dr. Neosho Ponder. She is absolutely amazing. Dr. Ponder is an author, a breast cancer warrior, and a neurodivergent super stellar reader. Dr. Ponder, thanks so much for joining us today.
thank you for having me, Michelle.
Now, I've got more questions as a professional
Hmm.
because you're a PhD candidate, not a candidate, you're a graduate, you have master's, PhD.
Yeah.
How important has reading been on your journey? How has reading helped you to be successful?
Well, I think that just as an educator, we should always be learning. And while I don't think that learning is just in the visual, like what is it, experiences phase. It's also, they say, how do you hide something from people? Put it in a book, because a lot of people don't read books. And what I try to do is encourage my students to always be reading. I know that we're in the 21st century and so much is on audio and Kindle and electronic books and whatnot, but I still like buying books. I don't buy tons of books. I don't have anywhere to put them, to be honest, but I still have books that I've already read, I've loaned out and gotten back. And I still have them. That is something that especially books that are signed and everything. So I think and also I like books that I can use in my classes. I teach communication courses. I'm an adjunct professor. And even though a lot of schools are moving towards open source books, which is books you get for free online, because a lot of students can't afford books in college, which I know that life. But I still, make sure that my students read the textbook or read a book that has information in it, that goes with what we're talking about for that week. And it sometimes is an aha moment for them. If I mention a book, I'm like, oh yeah, I read this author, and they will pull it up and they'll be like, you mean this one, Dr. Ponder? Or something. Yeah, they are very resourceful. So I appreciate that. And yeah, so I try my best to always be learning. I'm a know-it-all, Michelle, but I'm not a know-it-all who's always loud and wrong. Like the thing, I don't talk about stuff that I don't know. So if I talk about it, I know it. Yeah.
So, Dr. Ponder, what are the ages of students that you teach currently?
So, yeah, I teach on the collegiate level. The ages are very it's a wide age range, because I teach in the School of Professional Studies at Trinity Washington University. I taught at Howard for 5 years up until my diagnosis. And then Trinity allowed me to teach through treatment. It was just more of a seamless, especially working in the evenings. My classes at Howard were during the day. So my students are returning to school. So a lot of them are grandmothers and parents, and or were teenage mothers and had to work. for years, and now they're going back to school. I get it every term because they have a term system at Trinity. They always say, well, Dr. P, I ain't been in school for 20 years and you got to bear with me. I say, that's okay, but you're here, and so I've had a few students in their 20s, in every class, but majority of my students are, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I've even had a couple of students over the years who were closer to my parents' age, like towards their 70s. And they're working on their second career, or they're retired and they want to move into a different direction. So it's nice to be able to teach adults who want to learn, because for years I taught students that I had to be like, why aren't you doing this work? Or or for a few years I was a long-term substitute in K through 12 in Kansas City after college. And I had a teacher, because I was, like I said, I was long-term. So I had a teacher gift me some two limited edition books that a former landlord, when I lived in California briefly, disposed of without my knowledge. But they're like the velvet cover of Treasure Island and The Wizard of Oz. I'm never gonna forget it, because she had a child that died at birth, and she was in the hospital for a while. So I ended up teaching her class for like 3/4 of the school year. It was a 4th grade class. I'll never forget it. And ironically, it was at an elementary school that I attended as a kid. And I always think about those books, because she wrote a very lengthy note inside the books to me. And I just wish that someone would see my name and Google me or something and get me those books. But it's been so long. But yeah, teaching, I didn't know that I would end up loving teaching. Was not where I was voted most likely to be Oprah. So but also, even with Oprah's book club, and there have been times when I've got a couple books out for the book club. Like, I think that I was very just into The Alchemist because of Oprah's book club, because she had talked about it for a while on her show. And I was like, I have to read this book because Oprah said read it, and so that is, I will say, having, that experience of teaching kindergartners all the way through. I have graduate students in a class that I teach as well. They're working on a master's degree. So having that wide range, it allows me to have a little bit more fun and flexibility with things.
That is absolutely awesome. Now, as an educator and a professional, how has reading made an imprint and impact to your success in this journey?
I've had to overcompensate at times, and I didn't know that I was neurodivergent. And I was diagnosed formally at 39 after breast cancer. Actually, I was diagnosed at 36 with breast cancer. So I got through a whole dissertation. I was medicated under my doctor's care, and I also, had Jesus. And so knowing now that I had to force myself and figure out different ways of doing things, sort of like I even do now. I didn't know that was a part of my neurodiversity, not sitting for long periods of time reading, but reading in chunks. That works for me, and sometimes, reading 2 or 3 chapters. And if I get hyper focused and I read more, great. And also giving myself grace for not having that ability to sit for long periods of time like I probably did as a kid. I love TV. I love to watch TV, hence me having a master's and PhD in media. But yeah, even to get to that point, you have to have read something, even creating TV and shows and movies and things like that. You still had to go from somewhere. And it's been so many times they said, oh, this book is coming out. I'm sorry, this movie is coming out and there is a book. And I remember running to read the book first, because we all know the book is better. And we all know the book is better. But yeah, I remember reading The Help the summer of 2011 before it was released in the theaters. And I get chills still. And I traveled a lot that summer because I was very active in the Urban League and NAACP, and their conventions were on both coasts. So I was traveling from LA to Boston that summer. I'm never going to forget it. And I read The Help in like 3 weeks maybe. And it was me traveling, and I still worked a little bit that summer because I was teaching a camp at a camp. I was in between my master's and my PhD, so I didn't have a full-time job. And I just could not put that book down. And I remember my friend who is a comedian and actor in LA. I stayed at his condo, and he was like, "You so grown. You just curled up with your book." I'm never gonna forget that because it was so funny. Because he was like gone all day auditioning or something, and when he came back, I'm like curled up on the couch with my book, And he was like, "You so grown." And yeah, so that those types of experiences really make me understand that it's okay to look at things and think through things differently. It's okay to have a different outlook on life, because I used to be like, why can't I finish this book? But it's not that I couldn't, and I had to get out of that thinking. And then I started finishing my books, so.
That is absolutely awesome. Now, we talk about literacy, especially in this
Mhm.
program, because we talk about the power of reading.
Yes.
What do you think the state of literacy is among our children, our adolescents, and our adults? And if we're not where we need to be, can we get there? What are some of the things that we can do to become better?
Wow. You know, I'm not a fan of AI. And I hope that none of your sponsors are AI companies. And I love STEAM, and because I want to include the arts into the STEM world, because I think it all goes together. I do value that. I worked for a STEM fellowship program at Howard before, but young people don't read, and you could tell. You can tell with their limited vocabulary. You can tell with how they express themselves at times. And unfortunately, parents are working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. And I'm a firm believer in the village concept. I have a whole chapter in my book called It Takes a Village. And I just really believe that all of us, I just came home from Breast Cancer Summit in Houston, and Aunt Vi from Queen Sugar was one of the luncheon speakers, and she talked about aunties and how she became how what she channeled, which was her aunties, to play this role. And I just think about me as an auntie. I'm a professional auntie. Okay. That's something that, and I told her that. I told Tina Lifford, the actual actress that played Aunt Vi, I told her, I said, I'm a professional auntie. My younger sister was a teenage mom, and she had 3 kids while I was in college. So, and now she has 5. And, I was very like on them about reading and doing their homework and things like that. Me and my sister are like oil and water, unfortunately, but I did provide that foundation. And I just think that there should be other aunties out there, and uncles and whatnot, that can also. And I'm a professional, like I said, when I say I'm a professional auntie, yeah, when I say I'm a professional auntie, my older cousins that have children, even though they're in their 20s and 30s and they're having their own kids, they already know more than likely Neosho's going to get you a book for Christmas. My younger cousin Erica has 2 little girls, and I bought them the Little Leaders, and her girls are like 3 years apart in age. And I told the older one, read this to her. And then when she gets in a couple of years, she'll read it to you. They love that book. It's called Little Leaders, where it's like all these stories about influential women in history. Oh my gosh. And it's a pretty thick book. I had to pack it in my luggage that year for Christmas. And but yeah, and my friends, when they are having baby showers, they know Neosho's probably gonna come with a book. I used to love, Corduroy. It's one of my favorite books as like a little child, one of the first books I could read on my own. So yeah, and I have on this Reading Rainbow t-shirt for a reason, and I used to look for the books that they talked about on the show and book it. Honey, that personal pan pizza was everything. You hear me? My sister used to be so jealous because I could get my pizza at Pizza Hut, and the Scholastic book clubs and things like that, and I just wish that parents understood how far reading and they say, and I always say reading is fundamental, but seriously, reading can save your life. You know how many artists out here don't read their contracts? and they end up broke. Reading, can really be a difference between, having stability for your family and you're struggling and you don't even need to struggle, right? So I constantly hammer home, and I used to tell my sister's kids, if you see a word you don't know, look it up. And I just wish that they had stayed on that path with the way I said it. But people are going to take their own paths, but at least they knew that they had an auntie that valued reading. My third nephew, he had a reading disability, and my sister has the same disability. So I knew him being that her, one or at least one of her kids would be a low reader. And I remember buying him the entire box set of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And he read through those books, and my sister was like, he's read through those books more than once, honey. And I was really proud of him for that. I wish I could have got some book reports, but that's just the teacher in me. But yeah, that kind of stuff is,
I love it. I love it. Well, Dr. Ponder, we got to take one more break. We got to pay these bills around here.
Yes,
You're a
ma'am.
phenomenal guest. We're going to be right back, everybody, with the importance of power reading with Dr. Neosho Ponder. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you shortly. Are you a company, business, or service that believes in social responsibility? Would you like to make a positive impact? You can. You can sponsor this program and be seen by 2 million viewers on the PIC TV network. Call 770-367-1268 for more information today. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Importance and Power of Reading. I'm your host, Michelle the Computer Lady. I have an epic and phenomenal woman on, Dr. Neosho Ponder. She's a Howard University dual graduate, a master's, PhD. She's an educator, and she's also an author. Dr. Ponder, before we get into some more questions, I need you to show everybody that new book. Tell everybody where they can go get it. Come on.
This is my book. It's called God's Got Jokes: How I Used My Faith and God's Humor to Survive Breast Cancer. And this book is definitely a labor of love. It's a very personal story, but having a master's in mass communication and media studies and a PhD in communication culture and media, I decided I was going to make my book multimedia. So if you scan the QR codes at the end of every chapter, it goes to a page on my website. And that page shows you pictures and you can listen to music from that chapter. So it is definitely a multimedia experience. Also, you can get God's Got Jokes from my website, neoshocponder.com. And I'll make sure that that Michelle has all my information. Please don't buy my book from Amazon because we don't get much. I'm sorry. I'm not a New York Times bestseller like so many of the authors we talked about here. And I also, a big reason I wrote the book is to have connection with those who read it. And I want to be able to write a little note to everyone on the inside cover. I embossed it. I have an embosser. So I emboss the book. I write a little note to the person and I give them a little gift from me. So you can find this on my website, Neosho C Ponder neoshoCponder.com. And I would love to sign a copy for you. And these are great gifts to those who are in treatment for cancer. Also, don't sleep on people who are not in treatment because this book is it's all about going through stuff. Because it wasn't only breast cancer that I was laughing at God's jokes at. I was homeless. I couldn't find a job. I had earned a PhD and got sick right after, like a year later, and I was looking for a job. So I had to teach part-time just to stay afloat. And then having those financial struggles. And, unfortunately, my family could send thoughts and prayers, but they're not in a position financially to help me. So I had to go through treatment alone here in DC. So it is definitely a journey. And I made it. So people really don't believe that I went through all that I went through. But I did. I had 8 surgeries. And in writing this book, I had to do a little reading. I had to read other memoirs of people who went through hardships. And I think that it helped me a lot. I think I listened to a couple of books. I had to drive across country to Kansas City. Again, we're in the pandemic, right? We're not flying much. And I had listened to a couple of books, but then I had to order a couple and I had to read through them as well, just to make sure that the voice that I wanted people to hear when they read my book was my voice. And I wanted to make sure that the way I communicate my story, when everyone was laughing and all the craziness that I went through, they're like, what? That did not happen. I wanted to make sure that I was writing it in that way. Also, there is a lot of cultural references and colloquialisms throughout the book that, even if you're not a person of color, you want to look up. My editor, she was a pastor's wife, but she was a white woman, young white woman from Georgia. And I just love her to pieces. Her name is Annie. And I don't friend people on Facebook because Facebook is very personal. It's really just my close friends from home and family. I'm more of an Instagram person for like external, relations. But Annie is my friend on Facebook. I'm auntie to her kids too. So I watch her kids growing up on Facebook. But Annie, she didn't understand, try Jesus and not me. And I literally said cancer should have tried Jesus and not me. And I sent her the video from the guy Toby, and she watched it. Oh, I get it now, and so I like that she was willing to open herself up to these cultural references and colloquialisms, and to see the humor in them. So I hope that those who are, even if you're not a cancer survivor, I've had several people want to buy my book because the one they think is really cool that I have the QR codes after every chapter, and I've had husbands read it before their wives, like they've gifted it to their wives before that they read it, and they're like, I couldn't put it down. I've had people read it twice already. My book was released February 1st, 2022, and I had the publisher hold it because I wanted my book to be released during Black History Month. So they held it for a month and a half because it was that important to me. Because yes, I'm a Black woman and I love my people and I love being Black, but I still know that when you have meaning behind the things that you do, it really helps people relate to you. And everything that I put in this book, everything, like even up to the release date, everything had a reason, and yeah, I've gotten some really great feedback, and yeah, and I already have an idea for a book for the next book. So we'll see what happens. But I'm right now, I'm still trying to get situated on the job front here, but yeah, so it's exciting. It really is.
That is amazing. Now, everybody, you got to go and get this book. You got to support God's Got Jokes by Dr. Neosho Ponder. It's a phenomenal read. I promise you, if you're on the breast cancer journey, if you know somebody on the breast cancer journey,
Mhm.
read it yourself and read it for them and give it to them as a gift. I promise you, they're going to appreciate it. I'm a breast cancer survivor. As everybody knows, I'm 6 years out. And that's how I started writing books for children. That's why I write for children. That's how I wrote my new book, which is up above Dr. Ponder's head. It's called Mommy, What's the Acetabulum? And we're going to be having this major fundraiser with that book soon. So everybody stay tuned for that. But as you know, and as Dr. Ponder said, on this breast cancer journey, the medical bills get tough. A lot of times, especially as women of color, we don't have the financial support that we need to get through these trying times. So
Mhm.
you want to support somebody in your community that's going through, somebody in your community that lived this struggle, then go get God's Got Jokes. Now, let's go back to these questions because you're an educator. And what I find, because you talked about being neurodivergent,
Mhm.
I also find that that's a big phenomenon among boys and men in our community. How can we get our boys to love reading more and
Mhm.
to read more? What are your suggestions?
Well, I think that listening to children really goes a long way. What do they like? What do they like? There are books written about gaming, books written that the main character is a gamer. If the young man in your life likes to play video games, but also I think that we have to carve out time and to sit with them while they read, or even join in, when usually third graders start reading chapter books, right? And I think that, say, okay, tonight I'm going to read a chapter. Tomorrow you're going to read a chapter and we're going to discuss it. Things like that, I think really does help. It helps kids know that you care and that you're invested. And it also, it helps you learn what they like and what they don't like, what they're struggling at and what they're not struggling at. You know, um, I think that kids start to separate in around the third grade, academically, and with that, those young men who those little boys, those babies who are 9 years old, 8 years old, who are acting out, and then they end up in the behavioral issue class. But sometimes it's not that, is that they are neurodivergent. And until our school systems recognize that and don't just throw medication down their throats or throw them in on an IEP without really learning more about what that IEP can do for them and how it can follow them and they can still make it. Because the stigma is so sad, and it really does stop kids in their tracks. So I'm hoping that more people will read with their children. Yes, reading to them is so important, when they're developing words and things like that, right? And their imaginations are developing. But I think we have that down. I think, just in America in general, I think people have that down, reading to your children. But what about when they are in second grade? Yes, you're tired, but just let them read to you. Maybe they'll read you to sleep. I think that'll help.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Not only that, now let's talk about STEM because we know that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, is now and it is the future.
Yes.
How can we get our kids more interested in learning about STEM?
Mhm.
What are some of the ways that we can incorporate STEM subjects and subject matter into reading and make it fun for our children? Dr. Ponder, you go.
I think I think when kids think about STEM, they think about those ugly math problems. Like, I still struggle with fractions and percentages, okay? Math is not my ministry. But when I think of the fact that I've incorporated STEM just into my book, this is technology. These QR codes, this is technology, and people don't understand the power of these QR codes and how easy it is to create them, you know? And so having more young people in those tech spaces, right? In Silicon Valleys and all these different spaces. And I have friends who work for NASA and work for the FAA and whatnot. And I think that they learned well, honestly, my friends learned later in life that they have really cool jobs in these spaces, right? Um, Also, again, I'm a huge movie buff. I think that that's really what made me gravitate to what I studied in school, and seeing movies like Hidden Figures, and seeing these different films that have these pioneers in them that look like them. Because a lot of times we see the man on the moon and we know he don't look like us, you know. But then you think, and then we read about the George Washington Carvers, and we read about, the Ronald McNair's. But then what about today? Like there's so many amazing people today in those fields. And it's not talked about enough, you know. Even the guy that invented the super soaker is a black man. How come that's not in history books next to George Washington Carver? You know, the idea behind the Matrix was a black woman. She was the first writer, not the Wazakowskis or whoever was credited with it. And yes, she's been paid billions in back pay because they wouldn't give her that credit. So you think about all of these people in the science spaces and technology spaces, and you know these engineers. I mean, I can't believe every time I hear about a new structure being built for our histories that black women are at the forefront of those, you know, or black people in general. My university just built the Divine Gardens, which is the plots for the Divine Nine. I went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City for undergrad, and we didn't have anything on campus that represented the Divine Nine. And, you know, members of those organizations did so much for that campus over the years. And finally we had something. And the gentleman who erected those, who designed them, the engineer behind them, the architect, was a black man and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. You know, so these are things that you find what kids are excited about, and you tap into that and you lean into it, because when you lose them, it's so hard to get them back. You know, so I'm hoping that when I have worked, I volunteer a lot with my sorority, and most recently we did a lot of back to school drives, and I went to one, and I helped the librarian. I just gravitated towards the books. I'm not gonna lie. And I was like handing out books to the families, and I saw so many books with brown and black faces on the cover, and kids with um what do they call, beakers, and you know, all these laboratory instruments and things. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. All these books with, because I didn't see that as a kid, you know, I didn't see that often. And also there are puzzles that have been designed that show STEM once you put them together, and they were created by a gentleman named Matthew Goins, who was a Howard University alum, and he's become a good friend because I've seen him at so many festivals and things, you know, vending, and and they're in Macy's, and it's called the Puzzle Huddles. And even from there, right, you can take what these kids are putting together and getting them to think. And then they're going to say, I want to read about this. You know, I want to know more. So you can like evolve, you know, into looking into more. And Michelle, I was remiss, and and please don't cut this out. I am a breast cancer advocate. So I work with the Tiger Lily Foundation. I am an angel lead for the Tiger Lily Foundation. And we educate, advocate for, empower, and support young women before, during, and after breast cancer. And so many of the scientists that are looking for medications for women who are triple negative, so many of the scientists and medical professionals who are reconstructing breasts. Like I'm learning more and more now. I'm meeting more, like living in DC, a lot of, I'm not gonna lie, my breast surgeon was a black man. I've had several, you know, doctors of color. My oncologist is Indian, he's a Sikh. So I have doctors of color, don't get me wrong, but some people never see doctors of color. And I'm finding even in the breast cancer space, there's so many doctors out there now, and we need more, don't get me wrong. And there is a woman named Edith Mitchell, Dr. Edith Mitchell, and she's making it her life's mission. And she's an older woman, she's still fiery. I came across her this past weekend, who's trying to get more young people into STEM and trying to get more Black kids interested in oncology that are in medical school. And so when I think of STEM, it's not limited to just, and again, I'm a STEAmer, but still, there's still all the technology that's coming down the pike, you know, all the technology that can be how do you say, morphed into the arts. You could do that. So yeah, just finding what kids like. I think we can incorporate STEM in anything, but it takes a village. I keep saying that, I know. It takes a village. And there's so many kids out here who don't know that Black scientists exist. So many kids who don't know that Black doctors exist. I was lucky to have a Black pediatrician, growing up, and I had a Black dentist. So these are things that are so important. I don't think my mom even did that intentionally. I don't think she did personally, but it made an impact. It did. So please, not only should you read to your children, but if you don't have children, find somebody's kids, because like Aunt Vi used to always say, she didn't have kids of her own on Queen Sugar, but she mothered all of those people on that show. And you don't have to have given birth to be a mother. My family gets on me all the time because I hate when people say Happy Mother's Day to me. I hate it. I have a godson. Don't get me wrong. I have a great godson because my godson is married and has a child. But I don't want to take anything away from mothers who do the day to day. I can pass kids back to their kids, to their parents, but it still takes a village. I take on my friends' children as my nephews and nieces, and I follow them through their trajectory through school and everything. Like, I actually have to call my best friend back because he had a conference with his son's teacher today. And, I got to see what him and his ex-wife came up with and what they're talking about. Like, yes, I'm that involved, to make sure that his son is getting away. His son is 5, and he's the youngest of 4. So I was like, okay, because he has 4 sisters and 3 sisters. It's different with the girls. These boys, woo. So yeah, and as an auntie, I definitely am okay with taking the reins and letting a parent rest. And parents should not be so proud that they can't ask for that help. So that's something else that I think a lot of parents, they're so proud. My sister, poster child for a proud parent. But don't be so proud and so prideful that your children miss out, that you're working yourself to death. So I'm hoping that parents who watch this, and also the village, step in, buy a book for a kid, and again, multimedia books are where it's at, incorporating STEM. They're doing that more and more, where the kids can scan the QR code or put in the code in their video games and do parts of that. And I love that parents do limit screen time. But if you're going to limit screen time, then replace that with books. It can be both, and we can coexist in this technology world, but it does take effort. And I don't think that, especially after the pandemic, a lot of companies and even the government are trying to go into more work from home 2 days a week, and or even have those 3 or 4 day work weeks and things like that, so you're not working yourself to death. And that is a problem in America, that we live to work, and we should just work to live. If you can survive, you should be okay. Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. Now, in closing, because as you know, this time goes by very, very fast.
Yes, ma'am.
I got one more question to ask you. As an educator, how important is it for kids to have books in their home or have access to books so it can spur their love of reading?
It's so important, especially when parents are putting kids in timeout and they have to just sit there and do nothing, or, you got bad grades, or you acted up on the school bus, so you're punished, right? But the punishment doesn't have to be sit in your room and do nothing, or you can't watch TV. So instead of punishing them, introduce something else to them, and have them to do that work and bringing that into their lives as well. So I think that having books in the home can be a huge game changer. Like I said, when it comes to the vocabulary and developing words and thoughts, and also recognizing words when you're at school, so you don't feel so left out because you've looked it up. I had a dictionary my first dictionary in the 4th grade was purchased by my biological father. And I don't even think he realized what, I take that back. He did, because he was an avid reader, and one of the things that he coached me through when I was first diagnosed with cancer, because he was a survivor at the time, was always take a book with you. I always take a notebook with you. you know, and I have pictures of myself going through chemo reading books. Wouldn't stay awake all the time, but that was always a thing for me, that I wasn't just sitting on my phone all the time. You know, I had my gospel music in my ears and I was reading a book. And I read Lovey Ajayi's first book, I'm Judging You, while going through chemo. Went to her book signing, bald, no boobs. I didn't care. I was going. I also I read Devon Franklin and Megan Good's book. I'm so sad about their divorce still, but I read their book while going through chemo. So I just think that looking at your bookshelf, and I love that my friends, and these are my educated friends though. What about the people who didn't go to college, right? But when you have a baby shower, ask everybody. In addition to what's on my registry, bring a book. And I've had friends have whole libraries for their unborn child already, you know. And I love that my sorority chapter does the said asks for members to buy books and either donate them or record yourself reading them to kids. Because sometimes when you hear someone speaking and reading from a book, it'll motivate a kid to say, oh, I want to be able to talk like that. I want to be able to read like that. I love her tone or something. So you just never know what it could do. So having books in the home really can change a child's life. And there are so many places you can get free books that, you know, and again, it's that pride, Michelle. I hope parents know that pride comes before the fall. Is that what it says? Right? That's the saying.
Yes.
Um, and I just hope that more people will take advantage of having more books in the home for sure.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Ponder, you have been epic. You have blessed our soul. It
Mm,
is October Breast Cancer Month. We're both survivors. And for the folks that don't know it, 1 in 4 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, you have 2 people on this stage. I had
mm,
grade 2. I had estrogen receptor ER positive cancer. They thought I had a
mm,
triple positive cancer.
mhm.
That's why it's important, number one, to do self-screening. Number
Yes.
two, to work with your doctors as your advocate as you go through this journey. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And tell everybody again about your book, God's Got Jokes. This
Yes.
is her
God's got
story
it.
through the breast cancer survival. Support
You
our
can buy it
sister
on my website.
as and buy from her website because we know if you go through Amazon, that's just another trauma on this journey we call life. Dr.
Yeah,
Ponder,
they
thank you so very much for joining me today. Thank you so much for being on this program. Folks, go buy her book, and we're going to see you on the next chapter of The Importance and Power of Reading. Remember, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I don't wear the scarf just as a decoration. I wear it because I've walked that journey, and there's so many women out there, and some men as well, that are on this breast cancer journey, and they need your support. If you can, make sure that you donate to American Cancer Society. There are other breast cancer organizations. And I want to send a special shout out to the Pink Ribbon Ladies from Athens Regional Hospital that came and gave me a bag during my journey. Everybody, have a great day. Remember, reading will lift up a nation. And that's why it's important for our children to know the importance and power of reading. We'll see you next week. Bye now. You know what's going on in our society, book banning, and over 38 million children don't have books in their homes. Join me for some exciting segments as we talk about the importance and power of reading with my guest.
Black life, Black inspirational stories, education, luxury, health features. Welcome to the new Black television, Pick TV network, where being in the black is luxury, it's accountability, and it's seeing what you look like in the new face of television. Pick TV network, come join us.